The former US President Jimmy Carter is celebrating his 100th birthday today. He's the first former president to reach that milestone. After leaving office in 1981, he continued to work tirelessly for a better world. His grandson has said the former president looks forward to casting his ballot in next month's election.
The sleepy town of Plains, Georgia, has never stopped being proud of its native son. Some streets haven't changed much since Jimmy Carter was born here in 1924. After military service in the Navy, Carter returned to his hometown and took over the family's peanut farm. He later went into politics and became state governor. In the wake of the Watergate scandal, Americans hungry for change elected the little-known Georgia Democrat with a reputation for honesty as their 39th president. During Carter's time in the White House, one of his biggest triumphs was in the international arena, promoting Middle East peace. He helped broker a landmark agreement between Israel and Egypt. But Iran's taking of U.S. hostages in 1979, along with a sputtering economy, made Carter deeply unpopular at home. In 1980, he became the first elected president to be turned out of office in 40 years, in a humiliating landslide defeat to his Republican challenger Ronald Reagan. With his political career behind him, Carter shifted his focus to humanitarian work, which redefined the role of presidents after they leave office. The Carter Center he founded in 1982 has worked to advance human rights and reduce suffering, including helping to eradicate guinea worm disease. Carter also helped mediate international conflicts and build houses for the needy as part of the Habitat for Humanity project. He was awarded the 2002 Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of his work. In 2021, Carter and his wife Rosalind, his closest advisor, became the first presidential couple to celebrate their 75th wedding anniversary. She died 2 years later, after her husband had already announced he would spend his remaining days in hospice care. Carter once said that the love of music was one of the things that has held America together. Fittingly, stars and relatives gathered for a concert to pay a musical tribute to Carter ahead of his milestone birthday.
Let's get more on the life and times of Jimmy Carter with Amber Roessner. She's professor at the University of Tennessee. She's an expert on Jimmy Carter and joins us tonight from Pittsburgh. Welcome to DW, Professor. Jimmy Carter's presidency was viewed as a failure at the time, in part because he failed to win re-election. Do you think that assessment is fair?
Well, certainly growing up in Winder, Georgia, that was one fact that I was aware of related to his one-term administration, that he was perceived as a failed president, largely, of course, because of the recession, stagflation, and also the Iranian hostage crisis. I certainly don't believe that that assessment is fair. I think that in the aftermath of Vietnam and Watergate, that Carter was a foundational glue that held our nation together and set it on its course to prosperity.
You've noted that he was shunned by the Washington elites. Other presidents have come in as outsiders. Why did Jimmy Carter have such a hard time?
Well, I think that in large part, he brought in what was referred to as the Georgia Mafia, some advisors from within the state, and he didn't do some of the traditional outreach that you would see typical of someone within their own party. And also, he really resisted making close friendships with reporters, and in that way kind of establishing himself as too close to the elite.
Right. Tell us a bit more about this Georgia Mafia. This sounds quite sinister and not at all the image that I have of cuddly Jimmy Carter in my head.
Oh, well, so it specifically refers to his campaign manager, Hamilton Jordan, his press secretary, Jody Powell, and also his advertising guru, Gerald Rafshoon. In large part, it's not sinister at all. They were simply attempting to help him with the strategies to win in a new world of politics that focused on the primary system and also that focused on image.
As an expert on Jimmy Carter, what do you think is his greatest legacy?
Well, I would say that it's certainly his initiatives that he started in the White House, particularly his efforts in terms of human rights, and that were extended in his work as post-president, specifically with the Carter Center, his work in terms of eradicating disease, and also being a champion of free and fair elections, his work for nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity. I think it's really interesting because there's a stat I just heard the other day that most Americans weren't born during Carter's White House and instead were born thereafter. And they really know him for the ways in which he gave back to his community. Certainly within the region right now that has seen tremendous flooding in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. I think that Jimmy Carter in this moment, if he could get out of bed today, would have that hammer and be working towards rebuilding communities.
All right. We'll leave it there, Amber. Thank you so much for joining us. Professor Amber Roessner from the University of Tennessee. Thank you so much.